Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here, and welcome back to another Lazy Sunday book review. And today we're going to be going over Philip and Alexander, Kings and Conquerors by Adrian Goldsworthy. And Goldsworthy is a pretty prominent classical historian, though I think he normally writes more on ancient Rome is kind of like his kind of area of expertise. So it's kind of interesting seeing his sort of take on sort of the Macedonian era of Philip II and his, uber famous son Alexander the Great. I have a couple other books here by Goldsworthy. In the Name of Rome, all about like Roman generals and stuff that I still need to read. It's been on my TBR for about like 2 years now. And one that I've read a long time ago, The Fall of Carthage, The Punic Wars, 265 to 146. Just because I'm like obsessed with the Punic Wars, have to have like all the like kind of established tomes on that topic. But anyways. So big shout out to Basic Books for sending me this copy for review, and let's just go ahead and get started. And where to start? This is actually a pretty hefty history tome here. I think it's like 600 page. It's about 560, 570 pages. It's about 500 pages of text, and then another like 70 pages in notes and citations and kind of source material and stuff. Which I guess I'll start with kind of like all the extra stuff. We have a lot of maps and stuff at the beginning. And that's going to be very important for those who are not familiar, especially with kind of like Alexander's kind of campaigns and conquests and stuff. It can be a little daunting just because of the vast scope of, Alexander's campaigns and whatnot. So there is some maps here, some diagrams on like some battle formations and stuff, which I thought were, they're pretty helpful. Kind of dealing with the different campaigns. Obviously, this is kind of like Asia Minor. We got like India over here during like his later campaigns and stuff. So I thought that was pretty good. And I will say there's like kind of like a timeline chronology thing at the beginning, which is kind of just like a little bit of refresher that I read just because I actually don't read a ton on Alexander. It's just kind of surprising considering I got I think 3 shelves on Greece, none on Macedonia, and then like a bunch on Rome. To put that out there, I want you guys to leave some comments on whether or not you like Alexander the Great. He's a very polarizing figure. He's like, when I just talk to people about history and stuff, he's kind of like right up there with Napoleon and like Caesar and stuff. Like either people like lionize him or demonize him. What are your thoughts on, was he like, overall good or overall kind of bad and stuff? And just a spoiler alert, I don't like Alexander the Great really very much at all. I think he was kind of like a megalomaniac, kind of terrible person, but just putting that out there. Leave some comments and down below, and let's just go ahead and continue on with that. I will say there is a good section, one of the appendices at the end is on the source material that he uses and kind of dealing with sort of how he used the primary sources, whether that's like Plutarch or Arian or what have you. And then there's a second appendix right here, the Royal Tombs at Virginal Aegae, which I thought was really interesting. During the 1970s, a bunch of Macedonian, Aegean Macedonian monarchical tombs were like excavated and stuff. And there's just kind of been debates and stuff on whose tombs they actually were really like Philip II's and stuff like that. I thought that was actually pretty interesting. And obviously tons of like citations from like secondary sources and stuff. Obviously really good stuff there as well. So now let's go on into like the actual actually I was about to say we're gonna go on to the narrative of the text and stuff, but there's also a bunch of plates here in the middle of the book as well, which I always enjoy, history books that bother to put in some nice high quality prints and stuff just to kind of get you kind of just a good feel of everything. Based on that tomb I was just talking about, that was archaeologically excavated. Based on like the bone structure of the person that was uncovered, if it was Philip II, that would be, roughly something that Philip II may have looked like. He did have a wound to his eye, and that's why he's missing an eye, just in case you didn't know that. But now let's actually go on to the narrative of the text. I was very, very, very pleased that about half the text, maybe not quite half, but pretty close to half, is actually dedicated to Philip II, which, for those who don't know, that is Alexander the Great's father. And he was the one who really sort of brought Macedonia kind of out from being kind of not necessarily a non-entity. It was never really a non-entity per se, but definitely kind of like a lower ranking kind of backwater state in the Greek world, in kind of the age of the classical age of the city-states of ancient Greece. He was the one that really brought Macedonia to the forefront, and sort of became hegemon of kind of the Greek world, that part of the classical world. and he sort of definitely revamped sort of the structure, the political structure and the economy of Macedon, but especially with his sort of military innovations and stuff, with the kind of phalangites and sarissas and stuff. I thought that was actually really interesting how he put Philip II at the forefront. A lot of times when you read different books on the sort of Macedonian era, the classical era and stuff, Philip II is sort of just either kind of an introductory chapter to Alexander the Great, or it's kind of like a prologue, and it's really glossed over, even though he really set the stage and kind of allowed Alexander to do what he was able to do, just because he had set such a strong foundation of the Macedonian state and everything, kind of to back Alexander up, after his death. So I thought that was really good. I definitely was really pleased with that. It could have, like I said, it's about half the book, so at least 200 pages plus was dedicated to the reign of Philip, and it was kind of cool too, just because I didn't know. Like I said, it's usually glossed over, and I haven't delved too much into Philip II, but it was kind of interesting seeing how he was so much diplomacy and kind of masterminded his way kind of around kind of the Hellenic world and stuff to come to the forefront. I thought that was really, really cool. And then we kind of obviously transition over to sort of Alexander and Alexander the Great, sort of, his major conquest of empire, essentially over about a 10-year span or so. And once we get to Alexander's portion, obviously the book is going to start to get really heavily kind of more, I guess, military oriented, but I mean, when you're dealing with Alexander the Great, that sort of comes with the territory, I guess. For those that are really interested in the campaigns and stuff, that'll be good news for you. All the major battles are highly detailed. Gaugamela, this is the Granicus River, crossing the Granicus River, Siege of Tyre, Hydaspes and stuff. All that is really highly covered. Even a bunch of little skirmishes and stuff is covered in pretty good detail and everything. So if you're kind of looking for sort of a military narrative account, this definitely would still fit the bill for you as well. Now, dealing with sort of the personality of Alexander, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Alexander the Great, so I'm already biased against it. And I'm always interested in dealing with sort of polarizing figures like this, how the author sort of treats his subject material. And I gotta say, Adrian Goldsworthy does do a really good job. You can really see him towing the line, trying to stay neutral on most accounts when it comes to dealing with sort of judgment values and stuff. In some aspects, I thought that was really good, because that's definitely what you should really be striving for as a historian. But just because I'm so heavily biased, sometimes I was no, you gotta point out when it's really bad. I'll give him a pro. One pro was I think the whole concept of a lot of authors kind of revisited Alexander and made him sort of this sort of symbol of he had the whole shtick of his brotherhood of mankind, that he was trying to forge a united world order type, maybe not world order type thing, but where everyone was equal and whatnot. And for example, one of the instances that they always cite to kind of back their claim up is when he presided over this really large wedding ceremony with a lot of his Macedonian officers and stuff, where they all married Persian or foreign women and stuff. But Adrian Goldsworthy does a good job pointing out that most of those marriages didn't last more than a couple years. Once Alexander the Great died, everything was granted, that was pretty much dissolved and stuff. So he definitely doesn't laud over Alexander as sort of this giant icon of the humanitarian icon, you know what I mean? So I thought that was actually pretty good. However, there are several instances why, just in particular, that I don't like Alexander the Great. For example, the assassination of Parmenion. For those who don't know, Parmenion was sort of one of his top kind of lieutenants, a minor general in his army and stuff, held the flank and stuff at Gaugamela and whatnot. Stuff like that. Did really good. And he's he's some in the sources, he's kind of a foil to Alexander a lot of times. The author deals sort of with that as well. But when Parmenian's son is kind of involved in an assassination plot against Alexander, Parmenian, even though he's not even in the vicinity, he's literally 100 miles away or whatever, is sort of just kind of executed or assassinated on orders by Alexander and stuff. And I always thought that was kind of a shady sort of thing, but I guess with assassination plots, everything kind of gets murky real fast. So I always kind of that's sort of one that I still don't like, but I can kind of except, authors say, it still had to be done. However, Alexander also literally just straight up murdered himself, Cletus the Black. And for those who don't know that that story, essentially Cletus, like at one of their like drinking parties, as Macedonians were wont to do, especially after big, victories and kind of just going around the countryside conquering stuff. Uh, as testosterone fueled like Macedonians are wont to do, just kind of like boasting and stuff. He basically sort of probably I don't know what was the best way to put it. Just put down Alexander a little bit, knocked him off his pedestal a little bit, just with his, like some of his boasting and stuff. And Alexander wasn't gonna have it, and literally just like grabbed a spear and just straight up murdered Clytus like at the party. Yeah, so when the thing is, there's really almost like no way to justify it. Obviously, some people said, well, you can't like talk to the king like that, but I mean, are you really gonna like say he's like that great of a person, a great leader of men or whatever, and you're just gonna murder someone for picking at you a little bit? I mean, the author does say it's still kind of bad to murder someone, but it's like you think, especially when Claudius the Black actually personally saved Alexander. I think it was the Battle of can't remember if it was Granicus or Gaugamela off the top of my head. Alexander was about to get his head chopped off by a Persian, and Claudius the Black was right there to cut off the Persian's arm as he was like swinging the sword at Alexander the Great's neck. So I always thought that was just, I don't know, that was just like dirty pool to kill. Even if he's making fun of you, he literally like saved your life, like personally saved your life. So I never liked that as well. And then one more thing why I don't like Alexander that the author kind of in a roundabout way deals with is the crossing of the Godrosian Desert. And just in that crossing, as they're returning from India back towards the Fertile Crescent area, he wants to cross the Godrosian Desert, and more Macedonians and more of his army are killed in that passing of the desert than are like in all his like battles combined, basically. Though that's always what I've sort of been able to read from it. Though the author does a good job, kind of explaining like kind of all the nuances involved with that. Though I still think it was more just a hubristic sort of thing, just because no great army had ever crossed the desert and stuff. He wanted to be the first one to do it. Just losing men just for the sake of vanity like that, I always hated as well. Though, like I said, the author, Goldsworthy, does do a good job kind of nuancing that. Like, his options were vaguely limited, and there was a lot of, like, kind of unforeseen problems and that sort of thing as well. So, overall, I think the author... that was, like, the big, longest, like, tangent ever. The author does do a good job kind of staying neutral to... sort of, lionizing or demonizing Alexander the Great. Like I said, some books you can just you read the hero worship and it's just really cringy and I hate it. And then in the other case, even though I'm like super biased against Alexander, it isn't like great to always read stuff that's you can clearly, it's just like a hack piece as well. So like I said, overall still really good history. He definitely uses his source material well, and when he provides really good arguments, like when he does, especially, and he admits when the sources aren't clear with something and there's really no way to tell. He gives his best kind of like professional opinion, like what he thinks kind of going forward, what's kind of going on. And that's always kind of what you want, especially with like classical history. There's just Alexander the Great, for example, is at least a figure that at least like compared to like other figures and other events from the same time period in the ancient world, quite a bit of material has come down to us, especially like Arian and stuff like that. So we do have at least we have a pretty good starting point with a lot of the material involved and everything. So yeah, overall I really enjoyed Philip and Alexander. Like I said, it is a pretty beefy tome, though. If you're really wanting to learn about kind of like the rise of Macedonia and obviously kind of Alexander the Great's conquest, and sort of like I said, the first half kind of setting the stage for Alexander really sold the book for me. I really enjoyed that, just because like I said, Philip II really helped Alexander sort of be able to do what he was able to do in conquering Persia. So anyways, like I said, highly recommend the book. I'm really glad I read it, especially if you're looking for like Philip. I think this would be the perfect book for you. So anyways, I think that was it. Like I said, I went on that really long tangent. I lost my train of thought. But overall, like I said, pick up the book if you're really into like Alexander the Great. If you want to learn more about how he was able to actually go about doing what he was able to do, I think that'd be a good book for you. So let me know what you think down below about Alexander, whether you like him or not. Like I said, I'm already biased. I know. Though it's funny because like one of my best friends that I talk to history about like used to always like be like the complete opposite of me and like really love Alexander as well. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Got more nonfiction book reviews coming out. Nonfiction November is right around the corner, so hopefully maybe I've got some stuff brewing for the month of November. I think that'll be pretty cool as well. Don't forget to check out my Instagram, Twitter, everything like that. And always remember, whatever you're reading, whether it's about Alexander, Philip, or anyone else, always remember, read victoriously.